Dr. Phil placed 2 wills on his desk. 2 different signatures. 2 different dates. And someone in this studio was lying. The Dr. Phil Show. Stage 29, Paramount Studios. Another family in crisis. Another inheritance dispute tearing siblings apart. The kind of case the show had handled dozens of times over 20 years. Bitter arguments over who gets the house, who deserves the money, who was the favorite child. But this case was different. Because somewhere between a mother's death and the reading of her will, someone had committed fraud. And Dr. Phil was about to expose it on national television. Sarah Mitchell sat in the guest chair on the left, her arms crossed defensively, her jaw tight. She was 47 years old, a pharmaceutical sales rep from Denver, and according to her, she was the rightful sole heir to her mother's $1.2 million estate. Her brother David sat in the chair on the right, leaning forward, his hands clenched together, his face flushed with years of suppressed anger. He was 43, a high school teacher from Phoenix, and according to him, his sister had stolen his inheritance. Between them stood Dr. Phil, holding 2 documents that told completely different stories. Sarah, Dr. Phil said, his voice carrying that signature blend of directness and control. You're telling me that your mother, Margaret Mitchell, changed her will 3 months before she died. That she decided to leave everything to you and cut David out entirely. Is that correct? Yes, Sarah said firmly. My mother made that decision. She was of sound mind. It was her choice. And David, Dr. Phil turned to the brother. You're saying that's impossible. That your mother would never have done that. She wouldn't. David's voice cracked. We talked every week. She loved both of us. She would never cut me out. Sarah did something. I know she did. Dr. Phil looked down at the 2 documents on his desk. One dated March 15, 2019. One dated June 3, 2019, just 12 days before Margaret Mitchell died of complications from pneumonia. Dr. Phil has witnessed family fights over inheritance for 20 years, but this was different. 2 wills, 2 different signatures, and when Dr. Phil said, "Stop the cameras, bring in a lawyer," everyone in the studio knew something was terribly wrong. The studio fell into tense silence. The audience, 300 people who had come expecting typical family drama, sensed this was something more serious. The cameras stayed locked on Dr. Phil's face as he studied the documents. Sarah, I want to show you something, Dr. Phil said, reaching into a folder on his desk. He pulled out a 3rd document. A photocopy of the original will from March 2019. This is the will your mother filed with her attorney, Robert Chen, in March of 2019. In this version, she splits her estate 50-50 between you and David. Do you remember this will? Yes, but she changed her mind, Sarah said quickly. She made a new will in June. With a different attorney. That's her right. Who was this different attorney? Sarah hesitated. I don't remember the name. It was someone she found. She wanted privacy. Dr. Phil's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. You don't remember the attorney's name who handled a $1.2 million will revision? She handled it privately. I wasn't involved. But you were the one who presented this June will to the probate court. You were the one who had it. How did you get it if you weren't involved? My mother gave it to me. Before she died. She wanted me to have it. Dr. Phil placed the June will next to the March will. Side by side. Sarah, I want you to look at these 2 signatures very carefully. The cameras zoomed in on the documents. The signatures were visible to the audience on the studio monitors. Margaret Mitchell's name signed at the bottom of each will. They didn't match. The March signature was flowing, confident, the handwriting of someone in control. The June signature was shaky, uncertain, the letters slightly malformed. Your mother was sick in June, David said, his voice rising. She could barely hold a pen. That's not even her signature. I've been saying this for 3 years, but nobody would listen. David, sit back, Dr. Phil said firmly. Let me handle this. He turned back to Sarah. I had these documents examined by a forensic handwriting analyst. Do you know what she found? Sarah's face had gone pale. I don't know what you're talking about. She found that the June signature was traced. Not signed. Traced over an existing signature using tracing paper and pressure. The March signature is genuine. The June signature is a forgery. The studio erupted. Not in applause, in gasps. Audience members leaning forward, hands over mouths. David shot to his feet. I knew it. I knew she did something. David, sit down. Dr. Phil commanded. Sarah, I need you to explain this to me. I don't have to explain anything, Sarah said, but her voice was shaking. This is entrapment. You can't just accuse me. I'm not accusing you of anything. Dr. Phil interrupted, his voice sharp. I'm showing you evidence. A forensic expert, someone who testifies in court cases, has determined that this signature was forged. Now I'm giving you a chance to explain how that's possible. Sarah's hands were trembling. My mother signed that will. I watched her sign it. Who else was in the room? Just us. It was private. No attorney? No witnesses? She wanted it private. Dr. Phil leaned back slightly, crossing his arms. Sarah, in the state of Colorado, a will requires 2 witnesses who are not beneficiaries. This June will has no witness signatures. Did you know that? Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Sarah didn't answer. She was staring at the documents on the desk, her breathing rapid, her face flushed. I want to tell you what I think happened. Dr. Phil said, his voice quieter now but carrying through the silent studio like a verdict. I think your mother made that March will splitting everything 50-50. I think she filed it properly with her attorney. And then in June, when she was very sick and heavily medicated, I think you put a piece of paper in front of her and told her to sign something. Maybe you said it was a medical form, maybe a property document, and she signed it because she trusted you. That's not true, Sarah whispered. And then I think you took that signature and traced it onto a fake will. A will that left everything to you. A will with no witnesses. A will that was never filed with any attorney because no legitimate attorney would have accepted it. And then after your mother died, you presented that fake will to probate court, hoping nobody would look too closely. David was crying now, not even trying to hide it. 3 years, he said. 3 years she's had everything while I got nothing. Mom's house. Mom's savings. Everything. Dr. Phil picked up both documents. Sarah, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you forge your mother's signature on this June will? Sarah's facade cracked. Her face crumpled. She was going to leave everything to David anyway. She said, her voice breaking. She always loved him more. I was just evening things out. The studio went completely silent. So you're admitting you forged this will? Dr. Phil said, not as a question but as a statement. I needed the money. Sarah sobbed. I had debts. Medical bills. My marriage was falling apart. David has a pension. He has security. I had nothing. Dr. Phil paused mid-sentence. The studio went completely silent. Dr. Phil stood perfectly still, the 2 wills still in his hands. When he spoke, his voice was low and measured, more dangerous than if he'd been yelling. Sarah, do you understand what you've just confessed to? On national television? In front of witnesses? Sarah's eyes went wide as the reality hit her. I didn't mean. You forged a legal document. You defrauded your brother out of $600,000. You committed a crime. Multiple crimes, actually. Dr. Phil turned to someone off camera. Carla, stop the tape. We need to pause production. The familiar. We'll be right back. Music didn't play. The audience didn't move. Nobody knew what was happening. Dr. Phil walked to the edge of the stage, still holding the documents, and gestured to his senior producer. They had a brief, intense conversation, Dr. Phil pointing at the wills, the producer nodding, pulling out her phone. After 2 minutes that felt like an hour, Dr. Phil walked back to center stage. Sarah, I've just had my producer contact our show's legal team. They're advising me that what you've confessed to constitutes fraud, forgery, and theft. I can't force you to do anything, but I strongly recommend that you speak with an attorney immediately. And I'm recommending that David file a formal complaint with the Denver District Attorney's Office. He turned to David. Your mother's real will, the one from March 2019, is the legitimate will. It needs to go back through probate. It's going to take time, but you're entitled to half of that estate. David couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. Dr. Phil did something he rarely did. He sat down in the chair next to David, not as a host but as a counselor. The cameras kept rolling, but this wasn't television anymore. This was real. David, I want you to hear me, Dr. Phil said quietly. Your mother didn't betray you. Your mother loved you. That will from March, the real will, proves it. She made sure you were taken care of. What your sister did doesn't change that. I thought she hated me, David whispered. For 3 years I thought Mom cut me out. That she died thinking I wasn't good enough. She never thought that. And now you have proof. Dr. Phil stood up and walked back to his desk. He picked up the March will, the real one, and handed it to David. This is your mother's true final wish. Take it. Keep it. And when you get your half of that estate, I want you to do something for me. What? Don't let this destroy the rest of your life. Your sister made terrible choices. She's going to face consequences. But you get to move forward knowing your mother loved you. That's worth more than the money. David clutched the document to his chest and nodded. Dr. Phil turned to Sarah, who was sobbing in her chair. Sarah, you need help. Professional help. Not just a lawyer, a therapist. What you did was criminal, but it came from a place of desperation and pain. That doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. I'm going to have my team give you contact information for addiction counselors and financial advisors. Because stealing from your brother didn't solve your problems. It just created new ones. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. After the show stopped taping, Dr. Phil did something unprecedented. He had his legal team contact both the Denver District Attorney's Office and a restitution mediator. Within 6 weeks, Sarah had confessed formally, agreed to return all the money she'd taken, and entered a plea agreement that included probation, restitution, and mandatory therapy instead of prison time. David got his inheritance. All of it, his half from the original will, plus the money Sarah had already spent was repaid through a court-ordered payment plan. It took 2 years, but every dollar came back. Sarah completed 18 months of therapy and financial counseling. She lost her job. She lost most of her friends. But she said later that Dr. Phil exposing her on national television was the moment she finally had to face what she'd become. The real March will, the one Margaret Mitchell actually signed, was framed and hung in David's living room. Not because of the money. Because it was proof his mother had loved him. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. 3 years after the show aired, Sarah sent David a letter. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. He never responded. But he kept the letter. Dr. Phil keeps a copy of both wills in his office. When producers pitch him inheritance cases now, he tells them about Sarah Mitchell. About how a forged signature on a document can destroy a family for generations. And about how sometimes the truth only comes out when someone finally says, "Stop the cameras."